Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, this time with a roundtable for real, this time mental health matters with partner NAMI Contra Costa. Today is Saturday, August 5th, 2023. August is National Wellness Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. And our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scotch Honor Productions. And of course, Lady Kaya in the studio today, holding it down on our board right now. And we do have Gigi Crowder now with us. She's the executive director of NAMI Contra Costa in California. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, an advocacy group focused on helping people with mental illness, founded by family members with people with mental illness. And we're going to talk about that CDC report on loneliness and isolation and how it impacts older adults. A recent report shows that half of people say that they suffer from some form of loneliness. It's become a national urgency. And also since the pandemic, it seems like the situation's only gotten worse. How you doing, Gigi?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So what can you tell us about the CDC report, and also what are some of the key things that we need to be aware of?
Okay, so what we learned from the CDC report was the health risk of loneliness. The isolation, we use terminology such as social distancing, and perhaps we should have said physical distancing versus social distancing, because it increases, whenever you're isolated, it increases your risk of premature death. So this is pretty serious what we're talking about. Some of the risks is that when you are lonely or isolated, you might smoke more, you might eat more, and you're likely not to have the same level of physical activity. So it puts you at risk for some of the health-related challenges. And a big one for us in some communities is 50% had an increase in dementia. So we're now, after we're starting to settle down and get to a more comfortable understanding of COVID, we're recognizing that many of our seniors may have what we had attributed earlier to young children, failure to thrive. Now we're seeing some of that in seniors, where their poor social relationships are causing them to have more health-related issues.
Wow. And then, so and it's gotten worse since the pandemic. Has this been a trend that's been going on prior to the pandemic?
It was definitely a concern prior to the pandemic, but now that we have had some individuals, especially our seniors, who have continued to be worried about the risk of COVID, we're seeing an increase. So loneliness, and not connecting with others is causing higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. So, yeah, it's definitely increased, and therefore increased the risk of death.
So what are some of the other contributing factors? Why are people isolating? And also on top of that, can you, if you can, maybe draw a distinction between somebody that just likes their own space? I know some seniors that are comfortable in their own space. Every now and again, they might get out and do certain things, but they really do prefer to just be by themselves.
Yeah, there's a trending of older, and I'll say individuals who might isolate because they lost their partner and they were with them together, and then they also have other individuals that they had connections with who are no longer here. There's definitely a higher increase for immigrants. That's because of the language barriers that often accompany individuals when they come to this country and they don't engage with others from their community. And then, of course, there's a large number of people from the LGBT community who are also at a higher risk for loneliness and isolation. So the goal is to start looking more at the solutions and what we can do to make individuals feel more connected and build up their social ties.
But how can you tell the difference between someone who just wants to be by themselves and more independent, or just maybe a loner, versus someone who is lonely? Or is there a distinction?
Yeah, there's definitely a distinction. You can have people who feel lonely in a crowded room, right? So they feel alone even though they're with other individuals. But we're speaking of individuals who have chosen to isolate themselves. And usually that happens more even, working in the mental health field. When we don't see individuals that usually drop by, we'll go out of our way to make sure that we at least reach out to them, because we understand that the prolonged isolation leads to the depression and the anxiety. And so some people just tend to be alone, but they're happy being alone. They don't carry that depression or sadness with them when they're alone. They can occupy their times with maybe having a pet or doing some activity, as I said earlier, that keeps them engaged, whereas others are alone and not feeling happy about being alone, but not having the skill set or the support to connect with individuals. So there's a definite distinction between just being by yourself and being lonely.
Yeah, because oftentimes I go try to visit my mom in D.C. She always kicks me out of the house. She's like, nobody invited you here today. So she likes being, but she likes her own space. She just likes her own. She's always been that way. She likes her own space. She doesn't. I mean, she'll deal with you for a little bit, but don't you got some place to be right now? And then she'll, look at her watch, look at the clock, and she'll want to get back to her stories and all that stuff like that on TV and all that mess. But when seriously though, when people are experiencing loneliness, what are things that they can do? First of all, how can they recognize it? Because oftentimes, from what I understand, is that when people experience loneliness and depression, they don't even realize that they're lonely and depressed.
Yeah. Loneliness is the feeling of being alone, regardless of the amount of social contact you have. So you can feel alone even when there's other around you. And then social isolation is more like a lack of social connection. So the social isolation can lead to the loneliness in a lot of people. Well, some people, like your mom, can be alone and do fine. Others feel lonely without being socially isolated. So they can be amongst other people, but if they're not with like-minded individuals that they want to be with, they can feel alone. And so what we try and do is create activities that not just seniors, but anyone of any age could do that will draw them out. I personally feel like people tend to be more lonely and isolated when they don't have a connection to their purpose. So once you connect people to their purpose and things that they enjoy doing, we're lifting up at NAMI Contra Costa a program that gets seniors to go and work in the school settings and do some volunteer work there. And once they're connected to that, then they feel a whole lot better because they're kind of healing themselves through helping others. And so, but there are people like me and your mom that we don't mind visiting with our son, but we don't.
Don't think you're going to be staying the night, basically, for the most part. You still there? I think we lost you. Gigi still there with us? We're going to get Gigi back on the line. But so that's kind of the thing. So, but I guess from what we've taken so far from this conversation is that when you don't have a purpose and you feel like that you're not maybe connecting with people or people that are like-minded, and you don't feel like you have that reason for a why to get up out of bed every morning or to do something that's suitable and meaningful to you, maybe that is the sign that maybe you have some loneliness and depression. So as we get Gigi back on the line, make sure also too, keep in mind, we're not on Facebook or YouTube today, as you already know, but you can see us on WVON.com, and also you can also listen to us live, of course, as always, 4 to 6 p.m., AM 1690 on WVON. We air every Saturday, 4 to 6, America's Heroes Group, and also check us out on americashg.org. That's americashg.org. We can see a lot of our archive shows and get back to topics regarding the health and wellness and all the things that are important to veterans in the veteran community. So Gigi back with us. Gigi? I got to plug her in. So once again, so if you feel like you don't have a purpose or you feel like that you need resources or things around you, there's a lot of things we'll talk about when Gigi comes back on. A lot of things that you can do to make.
Not sure what happened there.
There you are. Yeah. I was getting to the point where.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you fine, loud and clear. I was getting ready to talk to the audience about things that seniors can do and people can do in general when they start to feel lonely or feel that they're not getting that connection. They don't feel like they don't have that purpose.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
She hung up again.
We're going to get it back on the line, but back to what I was getting ready to get into a little bit about loneliness. I think this is a real serious topic that we need to get into. And there's a difference between someone who's a loner versus someone who's being lonely. If you think that you're lonely, it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone and call somebody. There's every community has a Department on Aging. That's one place to start. Also, too, local church community and community groups for veterans, veteran service organizations. There are plenty of us out there that you could connect with to try to get out and about and to find a purpose and find like-minded people that have the ideas and values that you have. I think that's so critical and very, very important. And I can tell a ton of stories of people that I've known over the years, veterans included, that when they've lost that person in their life that they felt connected to, how their lives suddenly started to change and devolve a little bit. I had a really dear friend of mine who passed away a few years ago. He was an Army veteran. And when he retired, that was kind of his purpose, was he loved his job. He was an engineer and he loved his job. And when he retired, it kind of took a piece of him. He felt like he needed to retire because he didn't have the sharpness and the focus that he once had. And he thought he lost a couple of steps in his career. So what he did was he relegated himself to his house, and he sat in the house all the time. And at first he was going out, seeing friends and visiting people, things like that. And that slowly became to just sitting in his house, listening to his records. And then it became sitting in the house and listening to records, all day and some half the night. And I would go visit him, and we would talk, and he would have a Pepsi. And I would sit there and have a Pepsi with him. We would talk about stories about him being in the military, and when I was in the military, and people he dated when he was younger, and all that kind of good stuff, all the good old stories. But as time went on, fewer and fewer of his friends were coming by the house. And eventually, I believe that is what caused his demise in health. One day, I thought something was strange. I rang the doorbell. He didn't answer the door. So I was concerned. So I called his daughter. I said, I'm supposed to see your dad today, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I see the light on the front, but I just wanted to make sure he's okay. So she decided to call him, and she didn't hear from him. So 3 days later, his sister had a key, so she decided to go into the house, and he found him on the floor. And if his sister had not stepped into that room at that moment, he probably wouldn't have made it that long. He would have passed away. He would have been gone in probably, if not hours, definitely another day or so. And his body had literally atrophied to the point where he couldn't really walk. It was nothing really wrong with him. He had no real serious issues at all with his body. He was pretty much in pretty good health.
I'm sorry.
I was telling a story about, Gigi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There you are. We got about 15 minutes left, a little bit less than 15 minutes. But I was telling a story about a gentleman that I knew, a friend of mine that had passed away. And part of it, I believe a lot of it had to do with loneliness. And the reason why, long story short, so I get back to the information that you have, he had no physical ailments, really. He had a back issue, things like that, but he really had no real serious physical ailments. He just stopped engaging with people around outside of his house. And people stopped coming by his house. So he lost that connection. I was one of the few people that would just come and visit him and talk to him. And then eventually, he was found on the floor one day. Found on the floor. They got him into a nursing home. They got him rehabilitated. He was back to normal, and he was doing things the right way again. He was going out and seeing his friends. I hadn't seen him drive a car in God knows how many years. All of a sudden, he was driving and seeing his girlfriends again. Doing stuff in the community and things like that. And then once again, it slipped. He stopped going out fewer and fewer times, and then all of a sudden, he wasn't going out anymore at all. And eventually, he passed away.
And that's why we definitely work really hard on at NAMI Contra Costa around us, making sure there's not this failure to thrive, just such as I was saying with newborns, when they don't have a connection with their parent sometimes, they have a failure to thrive because they're not being stimulated. And so we really put programs in place like support groups, and we do go overboard with reaching out to make sure programs like Meals on Wheels have saved a lot of lives, because that's that daily contact with someone who's showing up and checking the person. So I try and tell family members of individuals, even if they don't need it, just help the person come by, just sign up for the program so that they have that connection, and you'll find they really look forward to it. There's studies that also show seniors who have animals, actually, because they have to get up and feed the dog and take the dog for a walk, live longer than isolated older adults that don't have that connection. And for me, as I said earlier, sorry for the being disrupted, but it's all about connection to purpose. And sometimes people, especially when they have dementia, they have to be reminded of their purpose, or they have to have support creating a new purpose. So I'm sorry to hear about the individual that you were working with. If dementia is included in that, then they definitely need more contact because, it's easy for them to forget and then they give up. So we're working hard to make sure people don't give up.
One thing that we had a guest on earlier from the Rick Harriman Foundation. One thing he brought up, we talked about leadership and also engaging with your family and family connections. You talked a lot about that technology also can be kind of an hindrance in some ways because it makes it easier for you to isolate. And particularly for younger people, because we can use social media, we can go and we can go on a journey by ourselves. We can tour the whole world by ourselves in our own little virtual world, and it's just by looking at social media and virtual games and all kind of different things you can do with a VR headset or just playing on your phone or in front of a console. I mean, that's something that I notice with the younger generation. I might get more concerned about what they're going to be like when they're seniors. Is the fact that they're not engaging and talking. Like when I was a kid, going outside to play was a major big deal. Like playing outside was a huge thing. Kids today don't want to go outside and play. A lot of kids don't want to go outside and play, and are not hanging out with their friends. Friends aren't coming over to the house, and they're not going over to anybody else's houses. And that concerns me.
And it should concern you because there's these artificial friends, right? It's people that they really don't know, but they may be sharing a video game with them, and maybe that person gets more active, or their parents make them stop playing, and then there's this loss that we're seeing a lot of parents calling in concerned with the amount of time their loved ones, and because of COVID, more young people got cell phones, so they have more access to technology and not necessarily healthy technology. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. We actually had programs where we delivered iPads to seniors so that they could have the connection they needed to have on Zoom and other tools like that so that they could get more engaged and participate. So it brought some people together more and got them more involved, but then for young people and for people who maybe overdid it with the technology, it's harmful. And I too fear what will happen with the generations of individuals that prefer to sit at home in a dark room with a stranger or even by themselves, using technology to meet a need. I'm not sure you can find your purpose through technology and the way you need to have a gainful employment, good life, solid relationship being built. It's, pretty scary to think about what might be in store for us somewhere down the line.
Yeah, and I think it's also important too, as far as veterans organizations go, making sure that people volunteer. I always believe everybody should do something to volunteer. A lot of us who work on American Heroes Group are volunteers, but just doing something that gets you out in the community, that tries to contribute to the community to find a purpose. And once again, finding people that have, like you said, like-minded ideas about life and values, things that people you can connect with and kind of have something in common with. But doing something bigger than yourself, I think, is always a huge thing to help you stay motivated, stay out, and stay vibrant in life.
Yeah, we often meet people and we say, what do you do? And so for them to have the answer to that, even if it's I'm retired, but now I volunteer here. I mean, our whole NAMI program is based on volunteerism, and we work really hard to keep that part, even when we get funding. There are some programs we offer that will always be done by volunteers. And as you look across some nonprofits, a large number of them are kept alive because of individuals who have retired and now they have the time to volunteer. And studies have shown that when a person is volunteering, they have a better quality of life because they're giving back. And so part of our work with working with seniors has been to create volunteer opportunities for them that support something that they're interested in. So we'll continue doing that kind of work at NAMI, recognizing that the anxiety and the depression that we see around loneliness, there's an answer for it. A lot of the illnesses that we see when people live with mental illness, it's biological. But when you can find something that you can have a solution to, you got to lean into that. And loneliness is something that we can lean into more.
There was I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and just get the better outcomes. We're all about improving the quality of life for individuals.
I think that's well said. There is in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. There is a organization, and it's the Anne Arundel County something or another. Forget the name, but anyways, it's an organization, a nonprofit organization where people can volunteer. Anybody can volunteer, and one of the things that they do is they are focused on helping seniors. But what happens is if you need, say, you're a senior and you need some help, you call this organization up. And someone must come and do whatever it is you might need done. So, for example, maybe somebody needs your a room painted in your home. But you can call somebody up, call this number up, and then they'll see if there's somebody in their database who's volunteered who wouldn't mind painting a room, who has qualified to paint a room, and they'll go and paint a room in your house for free. And then if you need somebody to clean up around the house because you're unable to do it, or just sit down and talk for 15 or 20 minutes or an hour or so, you can call this number, and then someone will, come out to visit you. And a lot of times they're seniors as well, but they're people of all ages. Will come out and visit you and sit with you to help you with any need that you want for free. But then, in turn, what they ask of you is, since you're not contributing, there's no monetary thing that you have to give for this program. Is if you have anybody in your family, let them know that you're participating, and hopefully someone in your family will then volunteer to do something for somebody else in the community.
That's wonderful. I mean, I think for seniors, everyone needs to have the opportunity, and that's why I heard you speaking about faith communities. Because of COVID, a connection that many individuals had was their daily routine on a Sunday, which was to at least once a week get up and go out. And a lot of them were on church ministry teams. And we've been doing some studies that have shown that a lot of individuals did not return to the church.
Yes.
So they're struggling because they've missed that connection. Only about 45% of individuals who used to attend a service are back in service now.
Wow. 45%?
That's also kind of scary.
You said less than 45%? Did we lose her? I think we lost her again. We're going to get her back on the line. We got about 5 minutes left or so. I'm hoping to get her for some final thoughts. But yeah, that is shocking. I've heard that before, that after the pandemic, a lot of people didn't return back to church, and a lot of people still are seeing church virtually. A lot of churches went virtual, and then also opened up a lot of churches across the country, where churches in Texas and California and Nebraska, wherever, or that never had a big following per se, but are finding larger congregations online because they're hosting Zoom meetings or doing something on YouTube, and they're able to get and reach people across the country and even around the world. Is that you, Gigi? Are you back? No, so we haven't want to get her back yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to just probably not have her back because we got to wrap up in about 10 seconds, a little bit. But I want to make sure that you guys are doing the things you need to do. If you have any concern, if you are lonely, make sure you reach out to someone. Look us up on americashg.org. You can contact us, call our number. Our number is 312. If I can read this without my glasses. No, can't read without my glasses. No, I'm getting old. 803-2618. That's 312-803-2618. That's our number. So we can help connect people. That's one of the missions of America's Heroes Group, is try to connect people who are disconnected, and try to get people who just need someone to talk to, need to get their voices out. And also for, I want to make a note too for corporate sponsors and corporate organizations out there as well. If you believe in the work that America's HD is doing, America's Heroes Group is doing, make sure that you reach out to us and see how you can partner with us so we can get your stories out there, as well as see what we can do as far as sponsorship opportunities, and also to connect you with people that are looking to serve the veteran community. That's something that's very important to us. We've been doing this for about 8 years now. And thanks to the 4 million people who've downloaded our podcast over the years. You mean a lot to us. You've done great work with helping America's Heroes Group stay relevant and stay new and fresh. is really, really critical. To all the veterans out there that have served this country, we salute you, and also we want to serve you as well. So back to the topic, if you have any concerns or questions, once again, check out our website, americashg.org. You can also see us on YouTube and Facebook. You can also call us at 312-803-2618 or send us an email. That's info@americashg.org. That's info@americashg.org. Or just Google us. Google Sean Claiborne. You'll find us somewhere. And then also, Ivan Ortega, he's got a great business, and he does great work for us when he's here doing our show and putting us on YouTube on live, and also doing our half-hour segments we have on YouTube. Check him out if you have any need for digital media production services. This is America's Heroes Group. We appreciate your time and also all the things you've done for us as far as keeping us alive and vibrant. We'll be back again next week, as we are every week, Saturday 4 to 6 p.m., and also bringing you information and news about what's relevant to the veteran community. So America's HG signing off. We'll see you next week. Be safe, be healthy, and give us a call.